Live center. Oh wow. It actually it actually did work. It just streams right to TikTok. That's pretty wild how that works. But we will. Oh, we'll have to see how that one pans out. But it says we're good. So as I said, we're trying something a little different today. We're using the restream that OBS has because I was getting sick of restream. So multi-stream chat, very strange how that works. Twitch requires additional permissions. Click here to grant permissions. Like this is stuff that you can only do when you're live. So 1 second. Should be good. SMS code.
Hey, did you know today's 10/24/24?
10/24/24. Is there some significance to that?
No, I just thought that was interesting. That's 10/24/24.
10/24/24. Come on.
Next year's gonna happen on 10/25/25.
All set. Well, the big news going around. There we go. The big news going around right now is right. We got Rogan is having Trump tomorrow. It sounds like that's pretty massive. That's pretty much a 100% at this point.
Are we podcasting right now?
Yeah, it went live. We're good to go.
That was one of my articles.
Oh, really? I'm just.
Did you not see them? I emailed them to you.
Trump
to
I
appear on
literally
Joe
just
Rogan.
got to my computer.
And the latest outreach to the young people.
Well, first off, Mom, we should probably talk about where we've kind of been for the last couple weeks in the sense of we did a lot of traveling. We had some stuff happen. I don't know how much you want to go into about the stuff, but like I did a whole video on like the anxiety situation just because I thought it would help a lot of people and it reached a lot of voices. So
Good.
it definitely did help. But yeah, that's
One in 3 people.
1 in 3 people. So I just want to quickly, we're doing a little testing here because I can't really see my chats and stuff, but I'm just very curious to see if we're live and it's the way it's working. Let's see. But yeah. So if I type into chat, let's just see. Hi. It should show up on my, oh yeah, it does. Wow. And then if I go to multi-stream, it just goes all the way. Oh, and then it has everything. Oh, that's really neat. Good job. OBS does something correct. It's way better than Restream. I can't stand Restream. So I have a chat here that has all of them, all of our things together, including like TikTok and stuff.
Nice.
Now, I'm going to be honest. I've never actually seen. First off, let me tell you, one of the things that sucks about TikTok is it is impossible to get a stream key. So somehow they just gave it to me, but I'm curious to see if it's live or not.
I don't even know what that means.
So your stream key is what allows you to stream to a certain server.
Okay.
And I don't even know how to stream to TikTok, but whatever. That's besides the point.
Whatever.
So either way, yeah, it's been not rough, but it's been quite the eventful couple of weeks for us. It has been almost a month since we did the last podcast, which was also live. So it just goes to show how long we've been away. But I was away for 2.5 weeks, a little longer than expected because of the family matter that if you want to talk about it, it's your choice. But
you're one of your podcast guests.
Yeah.
Grandma took a swan dive.
Grandma decided she was going to break dance in her townhouse, and so I had to stay home a little longer than expected because we were just taking care of her. Man, I've been telling, everyone's been asking about it in the sense of like family and friends that have been asking like what happened. And, I bring up the whole, like we got there at 12 a.m. We really didn't see a doctor, like a real doctor, till like 5 a.m. Meanwhile, we have a 90-year-old grandmother who took a nosedive and is in quite a bit of pain, and we can't get a doctor. So it just it makes you kind of realize that hospitals, not strong, just not strong on a lot of this stuff.
For those people who, may not know our story, she's about 3 hours away from us. And she is 90 years old, but she has all these people around her. She's got a friend up there. My sister has people up there. We have all these people. Do you know she falls the night when a friend is on a cruise, my mother's friend is down in Westchester, all these people, no one was around. So it was a wake-up call for us. You always think, there's always going to be somebody around. There was no one. So Chris took the hike up with me, in the middle of late evening, and is an emergency. We spent the evening in the lovely hospital at upstate New York,
Glens Falls Hospital. Woo.
Glens Falls Hospital, and yeah, I mean, fortunately, she's recuperating as quickly as a 90-year-old can, but it's kind of a done deal for her. So she's unfortunately lost her independence because at least being hours away, it's just too difficult, as Christopher experienced, to
It's
do
tough.
that in an emergency. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
ideal.
And
So
luckily, it was just a fall and a broken shoulder rather than something more serious. So it's kind of like it's like that. It's a rude awakening is not the right word. A pleasant awakening, I guess,
yeah.
in a sense. So,
Yeah, the
yeah.
last time we had to take care of her, we being my sister and I, was when she broke her ankle. And it wasn't just, my relatives don't break anything easy. It's got to be shattered. It's got to be a shattered ankle where you can't even cast it. You have to put pins in it.
Right.
Same thing with the particular, she broke her humerus bone, which is the arm bone, the tippy top,
Yeah,
which you
so
can't
like if you
cast.
have your joint that's connected to your shoulder like this, she broke the bone that literally connects the upper arm to that socket.
Yeah, it's
Seeing
like the tippy top.
seeing her x-rays, like literally the doctor or the PA was like, "Hey, you want to see
Yeah.
the x-ray?" We go look, and it's literally like you can just see like an emptiness.
Yeah, like a line to,
It's just a
yeah.
straight line through. So,
But again, something that can't be casted, so that makes it even
right.
harder when you're dealing with an older person because she can't move her arm. We got to isolate it. And she wants to move it, so it's it's not easy with an elderly person.
Yeah.
She's was in shock for quite a bit. She kept telling everybody, "I didn't break anything," and her
Yeah,
story kept
as you
changing.
see her arm and it's just black and blue all the way down. Like that's when it's like, oh, this is way worse than
Yeah, and
just
it went from I passed out to I fell in my bathroom, which she didn't. It was in the kitchen. To I don't remember falling. To I mean, we ran the gambit of every possible
yeah.
thing. But
The only
so
yeah.
anyhow, lives are radically changed now. Grandma's moving south.
Yeah, pretty quickly, but it's just kind of funny in the sense that the doctor goes, as long as she doesn't move, it'll
Yeah,
heal naturally. And then we turn and we're looking at her in the right in the
yeah,
hospital bed, and she's like, eh,
yeah.
eh.
Leaning with the arm.
Oh, it
Yeah,
hurts so much. We're like, Graham, you can't do
yeah,
that. So, and
yeah.
the healing process is 4 to 6 weeks, but that's to me, the doctors know better, but to me, that's like, um, that's for someone who has good bones, not someone who's 90. So that's why it's like, this could be
Yeah,
rough.
they seem to think 6 weeks. It should knit. At the end of 2 weeks, you don't feel your pain sensation changes for the better. That's how the orthopedist put it. So we're actually at the 2 week mark next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. So we're 2 weeks
Nice.
into it. And yeah, it is, for those of your listeners who've experienced this, it's a family changing experience. We knew it was going to come at some point. It just kind of moves things along a little bit quicker. And we just have to get her where she needs to be. So we're back. We're back live. We're doing our podcast, squeezing it in before I'm off to Glens Falls again, and you're off doing your thing.
Yeah, we're back to kind of our usual schedules, which is good. Again, it feels good to be back. And I was telling them
Oh, not
about,
me, but okay.
well, yeah. I meant the YouTube usual schedule for the podcast and stuff. We're back to that. Trying some
Right.
new things in the sense of we're streaming to multiple platforms. So, using something else rather than restream, but that's something I just have to get used to. But for the most part, everything else has been pretty good. As I said a thank you in the video that I did for letting me build a second computer at home for working back and forth. So that was the other
Yes.
thing that I said, because one of the big things that I said in the video was I might have to go home more um, because of the anxiety stuff and what we talked about. So yeah,
Well, in general, it's good to get out of your environment and go somewhere else. Once a month, once in a couple months. I think you go because the nature of your job, you work from where you are, you live there. You know, it's nice to have a break. And I think a lot of young people your age, well, many people not even young, they're experiencing that because everyone was working from home. The whole COVID experience when people were trapped in their houses. You weren't that extreme, you weren't trapped, but you do need everybody. They need a break. I see it in my sister too. Just getting out of her house for a little bit, even though she's stuck going up there taking care of our mother, but it's a different environment. Not necessarily better or worse, it's just a different environment. And I think mentally people need that sometimes. Got to get the cobwebs out, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, and yeah. I mean, as I said, I've learned a lot from when I was home, so that's helped
Yep.
substantially. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We don't have really too many major stories from when I was home, in the sense of, except for grandma, but
Yeah.
got to see everyone, friend, dentist. That's about it.
Well, it's also good the computer because I noticed when people do come home. Your brother was here once for quite longer than he had anticipated because he was waiting to travel, and you know, you guys are, and he's the one who watches movies and TVs probably more than you guys, but even he would have appreciated having the computer to do stuff on. So now it's good to have
Yeah. Well, Kenny,
that access.
When Kenny's bored, he just sleeps. Kenny's the kind of person that could just sleep anywhere. So
Well, he sits on his phone a lot when he comes home, but it's nice to have. And I don't know, you guys would know better, but I hope they take advantage of it too for work. Because a lot of times Ken would come and say, "Ah, I have all my stuff at home. I don't have it on the any computer here." So
right.
you had mentioned something about sharing drives and whatnot.
Yeah,
So
I'm trying to
that helps people.
I'm trying to create what's called a NAS system for home, which a NAS system is basically like
Nice to have.
a long form like long range file sharing system. So for us, that would be very beneficial for everyone in the family. So like my brothers can send files back and forth and not have to, like, usually I just bring a flash drive, but
Right.
for the stuff that, like, that, which is fine for them. But for me, who deals with a lot of video editing, you can't fit one video on a flash drive very easily. So that's
Right.
why it's easier to do the storage portion. And hopefully Grant can help me with that later on, like down the road. I think they're pretty easy. I've only built NASs for our company, which that's like a big NAS, whereas the home ones are like pretty much pre-built for you, and I've just never worked with them. So yeah, that's kind of the whole concept of the NAS system.
Well, you deal with that while I make sure Grandma eats and uses the
Yeah, use the
sits up in her chair
yeah,
and
yeah.
gets the right show on so she can watch the right TV show.
Is she just watching movies for the most part? You guys just like, what? Give me a typical night with Graham.
Oh, well, when I was up there, she's up about 3 or 4 times. See, I was at the beginning, so there's a lot of moaning, a lot of crying, a lot of ouch, a lot of I gotta get up. So by now, I think she's stabilizing a little bit, but she's elderly. They get up a lot in the night when you're uncomfortable because she can't sleep in a bed. She's in her armchair. You know the best thing? The chair that you have down there.
Uncle Jerry said that same thing. That I didn't. I walked in there in that guest room, and I'm like, oh wow, this chair is really wide. Like, I didn't realize how wide that chair is until you sit in it. But yeah, it's comfy. You can sleep in it. You can do everything. Sometimes I'll just sleep in that
place.
Yeah.
You talk about the one you have. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go in there. I'll sleep in there. I'm like Darth Vader.
Well, it's a good one for her too. But I'm hoping by the time she gets to our house, she's gonna use. We have those adjustable beds, right? So she's gonna. I already bumped Dad. I said, listen, we got to give the bed up to Grandma, and he was fine with it. So we have that, but we don't have a recliner like that. So anyhow, that's a typical night. The days are, she keeps herself entertained. She's not it's hard to do movies with Grandma because she can't hear too well.
Right.
And she loses focus. I think Aunt Sue said she was starting to get crabby, so we know she's getting better. She's complaining a lot more, so we figured she's getting better. And she's coming back to her old self. But I'll let you know more next podcast because I'm heading up tomorrow and taking over the weekend shift until she gets back down to New Bern.
Right.
Down to North Carolina.
Gotcha. But yeah, so we kind of have a rough future ahead of us, I guess you could say, as a
It'll be challenging, that's for certain. We'll see where it's gonna go, but more importantly, we're in the home stretch for the election.
I knew you were gonna. Mom wants to get right into the election stuff. I know. I knew you did. Yeah, I mean, we could go right into it. I mean, this was a pretty big week for Kamala in the sense of the amount of blunders and fumbles and whatever you want to call it that she's had. I mean, she's just not polling well anymore. Like, it's not even a matter of, oh, maybe it's a chance that she's got this. Like, it's at the point where there's really nothing left for her campaign.
As the Rasmussen pollster said, it looks like it's a Trump victory unless there are shenanigans.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of putting it, shenanigans.
Well, I think most people are under the impression of, like, listen, the 2020 election, whether it was stolen or not, okay. But this one, if Kamala wins, it would make even less sense at this point than the last election. And I think more and more people are realizing that. So, and including Democrats, like as I say all the time, I have Democratic friends who feel the same way. So I just, it's going to be an interesting couple of days here. And I don't think anyone in America is going to believe that Kamala won this one. Like every statistic says otherwise.
I think the bigger issue now is not even Kamala. It's saving the House or saving the Senate. And I think that's the scary part for the Democrats. They're going to lose. I'm pretty certain they're going to lose the Senate. And we're going to keep the House, we being Republicans.
Right.
And on top of that, if you get the White House. So you're about to see a meltdown like we haven't seen in a while, right? Because, it's perfectly fine when the Democrats control all three chambers or 2 out of 3. It's a nightmare, an Armageddon, and the country's going to end when it's another party, the other party that has it. So,
right.
That's part of the whole issue. So they're scrambling more about what they call the down ticket.
Yes.
People under Kamala. So that's the bigger concern. I think it is what it is with Kamala. I don't know what they plan, the Democrats, who knows, their last ditch effort. One of my articles was they tried to do the October surprise being John Kelly, who was his chief of staff for a period of time, when he was in the White House, came out and made some comment like, I heard Trump say that he wished his generals were more like Hitler's generals, the Nazis.
You got any proof of that? You have any? Are we just going by word of mouth here, or what are we doing?
It's pretty sad when even Mike Pence has to come out and say John Kelly's a liar. It was never said. Okay.
Yeah, that's like
everyone's coming out and saying the guy's a liar. I mean, to throw yourself under the bus like that. I mean, some of these individuals that were in the first Trump administration are just really pathetic individuals to attempt something like that.
But hey, he's the one that put him in there, so that's yeah.
Yeah, I blame his children.
Yeah.
I blame the children who were in the White House who pushed for certain people that turned out not to be the best. But at the same time, I saw some article just minutes ago. It's got to be fake. Kevin McCarthy is being considered for chief of staff for the next Trump administration. I mean,
I don't think so.
I cannot believe that would be true. The man is just a disaster.
Yeah, that would be very surprising.
Could lose the election over that, to be honest, if that turned out to be true. A lot of people, including myself, would be like, yeah, nope, not happening, sorry.
Yeah, it's very, it's very interesting because there's not much information out on who's going to be what, except obviously Elon and,
Kennedy.
But besides that, like, even on Kamala's side, we don't really know who's doing what. Tim Walz is having all this stuff come out about him that's like, we don't really know if it's true or not, right? But it's just, a lot of this is he said, she said, and it's kind of annoying, I won't lie.
Well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens. They have another accuser out. Oh, Trump groped me after Epstein. I mean, it's pathetic.
Yeah, but we have no proof.
A week before an election.
Yeah.
Right. And now, even if it was true, you wait till the week. Come on.
Oh, but
how stupid do you think people are?
You know what is weird, though, right? You have, remember Usher a couple weeks ago was like, I'm not taking a side on The View. Now, all of a sudden, the whole Diddy stuff comes out. You have all these celebrities like, I back Kamala. It's like, okay, what's going on here? Very strange.
Yeah.
So there's an agenda. I think everyone knows that. But
well, along with the same thing, my other article was about all these the hashtag Me Too actresses, right?
Yeah.
Wearing the black dresses and the special crying and Kavanaugh, and we believe all women. All right, so the vice president's husband has been credible evidence that he slapped around his ex-girlfriend.
Well.
Anybody hear anything from these women? Anybody squawking about, Me Too and believe the woman? And no, and they're out supporting Kamala. So it's their right to do that. But then they wonder why the average citizen, the peons that don't make them tens of millions of dollars and are not elites, why we don't take these individuals seriously anymore. They're hypocrites.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So, yeah, that is the state of our elections right now. And our the people that you're voting based on who likes who and who can make the other one look bad. And let me tell you, Anderson Cooper absolutely obliterated Kamala, which was so unexpected. Did you see that?
Yeah.
He was
I
like,
didn't
well,
see it, but I heard about it. I
yeah.
saw the
She
headlines from
goes
it.
on. She literally goes, I'm all for fracking. I forget what the all the things they mentioned was, but she's like, I'm so for fracking. And he goes, he has on a note card. He's like, well, back in 2019, there's literally a video of you saying that you're for banning fracking. So
Yeah.
she like couldn't even answer the question.
Yeah.
So
This is word salad after word salad after word salad.
yeah, her campaign can't get any worse at this point.
I will tell you this from my experience. When and if she loses, you're going to have every Democrat who is touting her come out on every show and talk about how I knew she was a bad candidate. We all knew she was a bad candidate. I never said that she was going to win. They're all going to backpedal.
Oh yeah.
And when they dissect the election, as they always do for the next year, they're going to talk about all the things she did wrong. Okay? The reality is, if people took a step back, anybody but Trump, take a step back, take Trump out of the equation. You just look at the Democratic Party and what went on in that party this year between the breakdown of the president in office in the debate. They railroaded the most unpopular vice president and tried to elevate her to be president of the United States. Just the whole party shouldn't even exist anymore. It's become such a laughing stock. Right?
Oh yeah.
Not to say the Republican Party is great, but it's just been a laughing stock. The fact that it's still going is literally because of Donald Trump, in the sense that anybody but Trump.
Well, it's definitely,
if there was any other candidate,
it's definitely what the
story.
media is running on. Like every podcaster says it best, in the sense of the only reason that mainstream media is still going is because they do all these, I don't want to call them hit pieces, but they have something to come up with because Trump, like if there's no Trump involved, like there's nothing to talk about. So yeah, and you could see it's not about how it's not like they're at the point where they can't talk about how great Kamala is, it's how bad Trump is, which is very strange.
That's the only thing that has really, and then it really helped Joe Biden too. It wasn't that they were pro Joe Biden; it was just anti Donald Trump.
Yeah, which is funny because Joe Biden has like completely kind of turned around, in the sense of like you can tell he's on his way out, so he's like, I don't give a shit anymore. Like he's like, no, when they're like, someone asked him in a press conference, which of course for some reason his press conferences are never seen anymore. Someone said to him like, Kamala blames you for a lot of the decisions that this country has done and things in your during your presidency. He's like, no, she's my vice president. Like you've picked everything. And then DeSantis, he's like, DeSantis picked up in 2 rings for help because DeSantis was like, listen, you're the vice president. I'm here to reach out to the president. And it's just L after L after L for Kamala on this one. And whereas
I'm not even going to say Kamala, this whole Democratic administration, run in the background by, I call him Black Jesus, by Obama, because everybody thinks he walks on water. Well, guess what? For those of us who know better, he doesn't walk on water. This has been one bad decision after another, and he and other advisors, their fingers are all over it, from Joe Biden all the way to Kamala Harris. And this is what you get. You get, frankly, a shit show. The fact that they say the only reason why she's doing as well as she is because of the mainstream media, bolstering her at every chance. There was a clip from Norah O'Donnell. I didn't put it up on the podcast, but it's like it's such a blatant. The person who posted it said, this is basically an advertisement for the Democratic Party. It was all about how Kamala's doing all these things. We're in the race and we're coming to the end, and Kamala's doing this. And then and then there's divisive Trump. I mean, it was just a negative. That's quote unquote a news show.
Right.
Okay? That's a news show. I was just talking with your dad about some of these other channels, including like a Fox News. It's the same story over and over all day long.
Yeah.
Pick the topic of choice, whatever it is, pro-Trump, pro-Kamala. That's all they do. That's not news. It's just the same stuff regurgitated over and over. That's the downside to 24/7 news cycles. They have to fill it with something, and it starts becoming a propaganda machine. That's all it is. They pick their candidate, and they churn out the same message all day long.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Damn it. Oh, yeah, the other thing with the Trump's people around him is that they're kind of doing it right. And what I mean by that is they're not going to the mainstream media for these interviews. Like Kamala goes to The View, goes to 60 Minutes, CNN, all of people on her side, whereas Trump's kind of going out there. Same with J.D. Vance. They're doing, like, as we said, Trump's doing Rogan tomorrow. J.D. Vance was just on Theo Vaughn. Trump also did Flagrant with Andrew Schultz. Like, they're doing all the stuff that hits our audience, right? The my age group, right?
Yes.
So they know that they rely on they are the future in the sense of the people that are going to see that. They are the ones that the vote really matters, because that's the future of America. So it's hard to say like, oh, Trump doesn't care about America when he's trying to cater to the future generations more than Kamala is. Someone brought up so Cam Newton has a podcast. Cam Newton, who very liberal, and I was very surprised. I didn't realize that guy knows very little about what's going on. But he had a guy on there who, I don't know who it was, but he said it really well. He said it's very hard he saw it as kind of a person thing. Like, he's like, I don't vote, but I'll tell you this. Every time I see Trump with African Americans, he's always very nice. Even if it's fake, he's very nice and he shows it. And he brought up a good point. He goes, Kamala, she's fake because you never see her around black people. Like, you never see her with black friends. You never see her with anyone except for me. You don't even really see her with Obama ever, right? She doesn't use her real last name, her married name, I believe it is, which is like Moff or whatever, Muff. And Emhoff, right? And he's like, that's the whitest name I've ever heard. Like, there's no one in his family that, he literally said this, and he's a very African-American person. He says, she's not with us because if you look at her family, it looks like she doesn't have any involvement in the black community. And I don't know if that's something to go off of, but I'm just like,
Janet Jackson would tell you she's not black.
Yeah.
Janet Jackson took crap for that. Her spokesperson tried to backpedal and say, well, that's not what she meant. And she goes, no, I meant it. And I said it. She's not black. She's really, I mean, I don't know her family tree. It doesn't matter to me, but they keep pushing her as black. Her mother's Indian, and I believe her father was mostly white. So, it doesn't matter either way, but they're making that their platform, that she's black. Okay. I mean, she's not according to the family tree, but does that matter? Both ways. I'm like, they're making it an issue. Does it matter what the skin color is of a person? It absolutely does not. It's the quality of what they achieve.
Yeah.
The comments I've heard about Donald Trump is his skill is that he can read a room. He reads a room very well. It doesn't matter who the people are. He goes in there and reads the room. That is a talent to have, especially if you're running for president. You need more than that, but he can read a room. He can stand up there and say, you're all liars, you're all fake. And people don't like that, but he's being brutally honest.
Well, he's had some weird moments too, like the one where he's like, if Ivanka wasn't my daughter, I'd be dating her. And it's like, hey, that's probably not, I see what you're trying to say here, but that's like, I don't know if that's nerves or what that is, but you can't, those are weird things to say that it's like, okay, now we're starting to see
personally, I mean, I didn't watch the debate. I think we talked about that, but I didn't watch his debate with Kamala. I think I saw a little bit of it and I walked away. I don't like listening to Trump. Like, I'm not one of these people. I want to go to rallies. Some people love that.
I'm the same way. There's one going on by us. It's like 45 minutes away. The amount of people talking about it. I'm in a very conservative town, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to those. I have a political podcast, so I'm not even freaking going to that. It's gonna be a shit show.
Well, I mean, I would go to one of them just to say, because he's one of those figures, whether you like him or not, he will make the history books. And to say I was at that particular candidate's rally would say something similar to when Barack Obama was running, to say, all right, I was at Barack Obama's rally, I heard him speak, whether you agree with him or not. It is something to say that you did once, but there are individuals that travel him, like they're groupies. They travel all over to all of his his different rallies, I don't need to hear him that much. Yeah.
That's up there with the Penn State alumni still going back after 40 years or whatever. That's up there.
I prefer.
I hope my brothers are watching.
I prefer when he speaks, when he's just talking to somebody. I'm curious to see how it'll be with Rogan, right? Because he's more relaxed. Rogan kind of can steer the conversation a little bit. sometimes Trump will ramble, as many politicians do. He takes crap for it, but they all do it. But he rambles about himself. And many of the things he talks about, yeah, you did achieve them. It just sounds very aggrandizing of yourself, or overselling yourself.
Right.
That he doesn't need to do. So I'm not keen on this. I resonate with his policies. I don't agree with him 100% on things, but I just can't stomach even a Kamala Harris. I mean, I just can't stomach that as a president, regardless of her party, that she's just going to get slapped around by every world leader out there, including Giorgia Meloni in Italy. Oh, another woman. I just can't have that. We're in such a critical state right now, delicate state in the world, that I need somebody sharp enough. And I got somebody who's got a proven record. We were not at war when this other person was in office. That's very important to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. But I sent you that picture yesterday. I was like, did you see that Trump car that was in front of me?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty common down here. That was just the first time I've seen one close, but the amount of, I mean, I would hate to be a liberal down here. You'd probably get stabbed.
Well, remember, North Carolina is a swing state.
It is, but it does not feel like it where I am.
Yeah, because you're not near the Triangle,
Right.
and you're not near Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's why people were very concerned about, like, Asheville is very liberal, but the surrounding areas are not. And those are the ones that were hit by the hurricane.
Yeah. You know what kind of grosses me out that I just kind of came across? Like, I just came to this conclusion yesterday, basically. So I'm driving back from the gym. There's a whole, like, the signs, like Trump Vance, Tim Walz, whatever. And I was thinking, I was like, what the hell are the point of these signs? Because a sign is not going to swing someone's vote. No one's going to look at that sign and go, oh, I guess I'll vote. But right, the whole psychology behind it is, oh, there's so many Walz signs and Kamala signs. I guess that means everyone's voting for Kamala, so I guess I'll join them. I think that's the concept. Because other than that, there's really no other reason as to why those exist. The idea of just putting a sign.
I mean, that is part of it. It's to influence people into thinking, oh, there's more Walz than Harris, and maybe that's who I should vote for. They seem more popular, or there's more Trump. You remember the signs in Doylestown when we were driving through Doylestown? The guy.
Oh my God, there was a guy. We're going to, what was that? Peddlersville and
just say Doylestown.
Oh,
Doylestown.
Doylestown.
People don't know it's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's in Pennsylvania, just on the cusp of New Jersey, basically. And there's this guy who has a farm who. How long do you think that stretched? Probably like 8 football fields, I would say, maybe longer. Literally,
not that far.
You don't think? You don't think that was 8 football?
Maybe 1 football field.
No. Way more than that. Yeah. That had to be at least. I'll say like 5 football fields. That went for a while, right? Because he had it was sign after sign after sign after sign. Yeah. It was just
big sign, little sign.
Yeah, of just Trump. But then he had this thing on there that was like the giant communist.
Creed.
Yeah, it's like the creed of communism. Creed. And like when you read it for a second, you're like, oh, okay, this is the signs of communism. But if you're just driving past, all you see is Trump, 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 and then a giant communist sign, and you're like, I don't think they thought that one through. So
you're gonna pull over on a major road, 2-lane road.
It's not even a 2-lane; it's a 1-lane. So it's not like people are gonna stop and check it. But I just thought that was hilarious because. And then right next door, like when you go literally like 20 feet down, the other side is just the same thing, but with Kamala and Walz. So, yeah. But
not as big though. But not as big.
Exactly. But again, I don't think those signs. No one has ever looked at those signs and said, "Oh, that'll be the reason I vote."
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll tell you this though. That's part of what's called Bucks County, and Bucks County has always been a blue county, meaning more Democrat.
Right.
And they announced about a week or 2 ago that Bucks County has gone red. They now have more registered Republicans than Democrats. That's big.
Yeah, that's for Pennsylvania to start swinging. Just kind of goes to show you the state of where we're at. Like it's a good thing if you're a conservative, but it's a bad thing in the sense of that's how far gone we are as a country, in a sense.
Well, or that's how far left a party is versus how far right.
Right.
Where people are looking for the lesser of two evils when you're in the middle like that, independent, whatever. Yeah. But to actually make the point of registering. I mean, I was talking to somebody from Pennsylvania who said Scott Pressler is, that guy's a hero as far as I'm concerned. He has pretty much turned Pennsylvania around, and he's actually out there registering the Amish people to vote in the election. I don't know if they're registered Republican or whatever, but he's getting these people to vote. And that's incredible. You know, the Amish, they don't usually partake in current modern day processes.
Right.
I don't know, maybe some of them vote, but they're not known to be a voting bloc. But as this person pointed out to me, you know, the FDA came in to one of the farmers in the area and demanded that they put all sorts of additives and stuff to the milk. And I don't know if that individual's Amish, but that the Amish people, they don't like that. You don't touch their farming. They're conservative. They do things the old-fashioned way. And when they came in and they enforced it, that was enough to turn many of the Amish community to say, you know what, we've had enough. You're not going to come in here, which equated to then you better start voting for the candidate who's not going to force you to do that.
Right.
That being the Republican. So he was able to get many of the Amish people signed up and ready to vote. That's the stuff that matters. You know, I want all people voting. All citizens voting. I don't care whom you vote for. I just want you to vote because that's your privilege and your right as an American citizen.
I agree, but I also think you have to take a IQ test before you vote as well. I need you to have some level of politics in your mind before you, like, just a general understanding. Like, I always say this story because it was so wild to me. In the 2020 election, I said to my friend, who, like, we were talking about politics, and she goes, I'm voting for Joe Biden. And I said, okay, but you know that if that happens, there's a good chance he passes away and Kamala Harris becomes president. And her answer was, who is Kamala Harris? That is someone I do not believe should be voting.
Yeah.
Sorry if you know who you are and you're watching.
We go off on this tangent again, but that's a mistake of the public school, of the school systems, because
Exactly.
they took civics out and they keep people stupid. And they tell people how to vote. That's the ultimate goal. If you don't educate yourself, if you're not a critical thinker, if you don't know these things, and a lot of people, myself included when I was younger, I didn't see how important that was. Life was more important than an election. But then you come to realize that dictates everything in your life. You need to take part. And it's a process, but it's supposed to start, you know, in high school when you teach kids. I don't care if you become a ballerina. You have to know who to vote for, who's running your country, and, you know, who's making decisions and what your input is.
Yeah. So I had another point there.
Again, and you should know the basics, like who's running for office.
Yeah.
How
many people can't say that?
Vice president was never a big deal. Vice president was always like a you know, like a glorified position. The joke was always the vice president doesn't do anything. They don't do anything, right?
Right.
But when you have somebody who's now in his 80s as president, and you've got another candidate like Donald Trump who's seemed somewhat fit, but the man's already had 2 assassination attempts on him. You got to take that vice president pretty seriously, because God forbid something happens, that person moves up.
And again, that's kind of where we're at. That's like the scary part of all this. But yeah, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, what other articles do you have, Mom? Again, I'm sorry I didn't get to really see anything because this one was kind of impromptu. I combined a few of them. I also apologize because I'm trying to manage the new streaming system, so I'm doing like 2 things at once. This is why I need my goddamn producer Michael to freaking step up here. Where are you, brother?
Oh, I guess you're not paying him enough.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't even show up.
I had 2 like human interest stories. Scientists discovered dogs are entering a new phase of evolution.
Really?
It's very interesting. So we have this hormone in us, Oxycontin. And Oxycontin is like...
I don't think that's right. Oxycontin is
not...
not...
Maybe it's
oxytocin.
Oxytocin. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me find it.
Probably oxytocin.
I think it's oxytocin. It's what makes the dogs... not cling, but it makes them more receptive to their owner, and it makes them turn to their owner more.
So our Bobo has a very high amount of this. Bobolicious, his oxytocin is in the highest charts, highest levels.
Right. It is oxytocin. Yeah. So they did in Sweden. They did a study of this. They put a nasal spray in dogs with the oxytocin and another one with just saline. The ones with the oxytocin, and then they gave them these treats to open.
Ooh.
I don't know if this is good or bad, but the ones, they made them difficult to open. The dogs that had the oxytocin turned to their owner immediately.
It was like, fix it, pick it up.
I'm looking at Bobo right now. Yeah. The other dogs would try out longer and harder to figure it out for themselves or walk away. So that's that dependency that they're seeing with dogs. The article talks a lot more about just in general, like for instance, service dogs and how very advanced they are compared to traditional dogs.
Right.
But there's been an evolutionary side of it because the dogs in the old days, like I always joke about the pioneer people, they would laugh at us today. But dogs back then, they were out, they were running, they weren't in the house. They just, that's the outyard, the barn, that was their world. And they made a comment about, dogs didn't sleep on the beds because you'd be loaded with fleas and ticks. And now, people have it all the time. And dogs are more housebound. They go out, but it's not their home to be outside. They tend to be more in the house. All that stuff is evolutionary for dogs. It changes their behavior. It makes them even, as they put it, they're even more domesticated than before. So, anyhow, for all these people who are loving their dogs and seeing changes in them, how much more? And then you get your pit bull.
Yeah, whatever that thing is. I saw the pit bull and the pug. You're like, what the hell? There's no way those things are designed to be bred like that.
Well, how about those dogs in the UK? I can't remember what they were called, but they were enormous. They
Bull
were like
mastiffs?
No, they were bred with the bull mastiff, but they actually started euthanizing
Oh,
them.
Tibetan.
I forget what they were called, but they were just like killing kids,
Oh God.
attacking people. Yeah, they were really bad, and I don't know if it was the breeding of them, but they went out and they said, yeah, no more of these dogs. So I don't even know if people are using them anymore, if they're allowed to keep these dogs. Can't remember what they were called, but there was a crossbreed, and they were just, I can't find it.
The Mastiff, the Boer Bolel, the Tosa Inu, and the Saint Bernard. So those are like the big ones.
The XL bully dogs.
Bully dogs? What's a bully dog?
Bully dog. How half of all extra large bully dogs in Britain, they're descended from, they're called Killer Kimbo.
Not a great name for a dog.
No, they're extremely violent. It's like you see pictures of them. They're just like vicious. But anyhow.
Oh, it's like a bigger pit bull.
Yeah, they're bred bigger and they're very, very dangerous, and that's why they've been banning them in the UK because so many injuries to children and such. Point being, you still have those breeds, but meanwhile you got the more domesticated, your doodles.
Yeah, doodle, your corgi.
But even their point was these service dogs and like the seeing eye dogs, those puppies are bred from the beginning to be conditioned to be, very helpful and for a person to depend on them. So it's interesting that they're slowly domesticating all animals by doing that. And my other story, which I thought was kind of neat, and this one I just caught at the last minute. It's about in Michigan, there's this giant park. Like a nature park, right. 60,000 acres. They must have these isolated cabins. I have to pull it up in the woods. One they said is reachable. The other one is 9 miles. You have to trek to get to this cabin. Mm-hmm. Bare bones. There's a wood burning stove. You have a sink with no faucet, so you have to get the water outside, I guess, and a bed. That's it. And they started putting. I want to say, what did they say, 90 years ago? They started putting blank notebooks in there. And people would write their experiences while they're out there, whatever they wanted. They could draw pictures, they write poetry, whatever. And the rangers would go in there and they would, when the book fills up, they take the book, they put a new one. So you're encouraged to put your thoughts down about your experiences. And it's kind of neat because they created a library out of it. So they have I think they said a few hundred of them. Of these books, and it's just interesting to see what people would write. And you have the old fancy script from people from the 1920s.
Yeah, and now you have people that can only print.
Yeah, Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park. It's in Michigan, 60,000 acres. And they said, like you see over time, people would write their thoughts or they would write about what was going on in the world. And they wound up gathering all these books and they keep it together. Even one of the rangers says, sometimes I like to read them while I'm having lunch because you just, you see something into the lives of people. Yeah. Yeah. Some people write about their experience with their kids, what they did that day. If there was bad weather or snowstorm, they'd write about it. I just thought it was kind of a neat idea and that they would just keep refreshing it. And, I guess people get a little stir crazy because there's nothing else to do.
Exactly. It's fun. I don't know why this came to mind, but I was just talking to a teacher on the plane about how kids don't write script anymore. Yeah. And then we kind of steamrolled into the whole how good a quality education is now. And she brought up a good point. Like, if you can't write script, you kind of don't realize how screwed you are in the sense of if you have to sign something, like everyone does e-documents now or whatever, but let's say you have to sign like paperwork on the spot with a signature because like leases and stuff, like you're kind of effed. I never really realized that, but yeah, like if you can't write in script, excuse me, you're kind of screwed up pretty bad.
Well, I think their thought process is eventually nobody's going to be using a signature to identify themselves anyhow.
But there's going to be a gap
biometric.
period. There's going to be a gap period, and that gap period is when you're going to have to be able to do both. And unfortunately, more and more people are unable to write in script. But then again, if you have a signature, I guess that's kind of different because a signature is technically your own thing. But
well, studies have been done and published about how, speaking of which, I had another article, but I'll do that in a minute. Studies have been done about the brain-hand development that comes from writing script. There is a mental, a physiological happenings when you use script. Something with the way the mind connects thoughts, ideas, and words, and just through the process through your hand.
Right.
So, and we know that there is something there because so many people experience dyscalculia, where the brain-hand connection, there's something there. And that's also part of, I think, young children's development of getting the head working with the hand and in sync and getting it thinking. I just know from a script perspective, like you were never one for print. You always did script.
I can't really write in print. My print's terrible.
Yeah.
My script is not great, but my script is definitely like people look at it and they go, "Oh, that's nice handwriting" for the most part. But like my print is abysmal. Like, but I will say, I guess my script is legible, definitely. My print is obviously as good as it can be, but obviously it still looks like a 5-year-old did it. So.
Well, I mean, you didn't use it a lot because you did a lot of script. Ken, your brother, did a lot of print, and his print was perfect when he was younger. Mike, I don't know. Mike didn't do script at all. Mike was out of the whole script thing. He does his signature, and remember we realized like in high school that he couldn't read script. And that was verboten in our household. I'm like, what do you mean you can't read it? But it made sense because his peers don't use it. The teachers weren't using it. Everything they do is computer based. Right. So I used to write him notes in script to force him to read it. If you want to know how to make dinner, you better learn how to read script. And that kind of forced him to do a little bit more of it.
Yeah, it's not like people kind of treat it like it's a foreign language in a sense. But I feel like once you learn script, like taking notes and everything is just so much better. Like everything's easier. Yeah. Because you don't have to take your pen off the notepad. You just keep going. So I never understood why. I would have thought that print would be phased out.
I correct you on this. Somebody just sent me, my friend Suzanne just sent me, a Harvard professor is stunned by this app. You take your phone while he's speaking. It creates notes for you.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to take notes anymore. Imagine that. I guess if a professor will allow that, but why not? It's just taking what he's saying and creates the notes for you. Yeah. So no, you don't have to take notes. You can sit there with your phone. Everything's created for you. Do I think this is good? No.
Man, the next generation's cooked. They don't have a chance. They'll all be McDonald's workers.
They don't see the younger, your generation too. They don't see the hell that they're walking themselves into. Do you not listen to these AI people? They want the machines to control you. Oh, that'll never happen. Meanwhile, you're not even taking notes anymore. The machine in your hand is doing what brains used to do beforehand. You're walking yourselves like what is it? Sheep to the whatever, moths to the flame. You're walking yourself into your own destruction. And at the same time, it's a win-win because your brain's not developing. You're not critically thinking. Therefore, it makes it easier for them to say, here's another gadget. Walk a little closer.
Yeah.
Here's your AI.
To your point, everything's going to change eventually. We're to the point where we might not even have to use our hands to write, but there's still going to be a gap period where you're going to see that culling of who's weak and who's strong, who has the knowledge and education to get through it. And I think you're going to start seeing those Catholic educations really shine. I think you're going to see more and more people trying to get into private schools rather than public schools.
Well, you're seeing it now, homeschooling, and to some
Oh
extent for
yeah,
those
geez,
who can
hold
afford
school.
it. And that's why so many individuals are anti-school choice, but that's why they've been promoting it for the poorer
Well,
communities to give them
oh,
the option to go to these schools.
I've heard stories of people who like are tutors, and then parents, like multiple parents, say, "Can you just teach?" And then they'll just do school at their house, basically,
Right.
like with a bunch of
Oh, they
kids.
trust me. They tried to outlaw that after COVID. They tried to put rules and regs saying, no, you can't homeschool
Of course
because
they
that
did.
goes against that goes against the getting funneling them into the school system. That's why they're always against charter schools and forget about school choice because that takes money away from the public schools,
Right.
right? And it also is accountability. It highlights just how bad many of these public schools are, and it doesn't change. No matter how much money you pump into them, it never changes. So yeah, the scam of the public school system. I think the only thing that's ever going to change it is all the good teachers out there finally taking a stand and saying, you know what, we work too hard to keep churning out garbage like this. There was a girl that was suing her Ivy League school because they wanted her to read a book her freshman year. And she went to the teacher and she said, I've never read a book. She got into an Ivy League school. I've never read a book. And the professor was writing this article saying, this is shocking me. She says, I've never had to. We've only had to do excerpts. We've never been required to read a book from cover to cover. This is becoming common in the college level.
Huh. So how do you go life without having to read a book? Like I don't really getting into Harvard's one thing. Clearly something else happened there. I'm going to assume there's some DEI going on there. But how do you become a straight A student to get into Harvard?
Well, assuming that's the case, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to assume you have to have certain GPAs and whatever to even be considered, hopefully. But how do you do that without ever reading a book?
Because that's the quality of our public school education and private school to some extent right now in this country. That's the direction you're going in. That's the quality of the teachers if you're not in a certain type of school where they demand that you do that. And you know from your own experience, Chris, you don't always have to read the book. You can get a
No,
lot of
yeah,
it off
that's
the
true.
internet.
But now I'm just thinking like, God damn it, if I was only born 10 years later, I would have been a straight A. I would have been loved. I got through
The
Thomas the
issue,
Tank Engine from front to back, Emma.
the issue is, as these professors are finding,
Yeah.
that's a problem. How do you teach somebody who refuses to read the book because they've never had to do
Do
it?
it.
And she's suing because of it. Like she's being forced to do it. And this
Okay.
is becoming
Can we
an
take
issue.
can we take a pause real fast? If this person's suing for that, it kind of goes to show that she's the problem, right?
Yeah.
So,
The point is, she's not alone.
yeah.
This is becoming, and I saw it when you guys started college, when everybody had to take that like 1.5 credit class, intro to college. And the dean had said to me, well, we're finding that young people are coming into college and they can't write. So we don't know how they're going to do
Oh,
papers and whatnot. So they decided to do that. You know what? That's what high school's for. So I don't know how much more blatant it has to be. So it becomes a top-down thing, which has always been. Kids for college, this is the standard we need when they walk in the door freshman year. So the universities now are either going to have to dumb down how they teach these kids, or they have to put pressure on the high schools to say, hey, you got to send these kids prepared. They got to be able to write. They got to be able to read. They got to have to be critical thinking.
I think what it does is it also kind of puts more of a gap between the CP, the honors, the AP, and then whatever's going to come next. Like I think it just goes to show like if you're not in these top categories, you're not really going anywhere.
All right. Well, you're being naive because most public schools they have got rid of those categories.
Oh, really?
It's racist to have AP. It's racist to have regents. It's racist to do that because that's only for white supremacy. You can't force minority kids.
That's a
to
legit
do that.
thing. Like they took it out. That's not in New Jersey anymore. Like it doesn't exist.
I don't know about New Jersey, but there's many school districts who have decided we're not doing that because it's just not the standard. COVID changed a lot of things in this country.
We are just on the
and not for
decline.
the better.
We're just on the decline of society. This is not
And
good.
God forbid parents, all those school board meetings, when they go in there, they're spending their time talking about, I don't want little Jimmy reading about, the improper things they're doing in the men's room with little Johnny.
Right.
I'd rather you teach them how to read and write. That's racist. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Or that's transphobic. You can't do that. That's how bad our educational system has become.
I saw sometimes on TikTok, those will pop up, like people that'll go into the teachers' districts and those town hall meetings and talk about stuff. And one guy walks up, gets to the podium, and he goes, well, good to see you, you fucking retards. I was like, damn, this is gonna be good.
Yeah. So, well, nobody ever took the school board seriously. Everyone was like, all right, who's running for school board? Just go ahead, fine, pick them. Well, now it matters.
Yeah.
Because now they're seeing the garbage from COVID, what's going on in these schools, and they're holding the school boards accountable. And the answer was, we better get the FBI involved, because if these parents keep questioning us, they must be terrorists. God forbid you question, my tax dollars should not be going towards these transphobic, whatever, trans books. Stick them in a library, but not in the school library. And how about you teach my kid how to read?
Right.
People never realize how bad it is until now.
Yeah. Good point. The thing that the teacher on the plane told me, right? She has to deal with this stuff all the time, like some kids. But she said the one thing that would make her retire if she had someone who needed a litter box. And I was laughing. I was like, yeah, that's ridiculous. And then she said, no, there are children in our school that bring litter boxes.
Yeah. Don't you remember that girl from the gym telling you, like 30% of her class in New Jersey were furries?
Yeah, that's Kyla. Yeah. I was like, being a furry is one thing, Mom, but when you're bringing in your own litter box, that's... I thought the lady was kidding, and she goes, no, there are actually students that bring...
in these bathrooms. They're supplying them in the bathrooms for these kids in the public schools. Okay? This is where... And they're not paying for it. That's your tax dollars.
Yeah.
Okay? And people are not aware of it. Their parents aren't aware. Or it's their attitude is, well, it's not my kid. As long as it's not my kid.
Right,
but
which isn't the right...
Right. This is how ridiculous. And that's why I say I think the only thing that will really turn it is when the good teachers start turning around and saying, this has to stop. We can't, we're going down the drain. And more kids being pulled out of the school system, going into private schools, like you originally said, or into religious schools or homeschooling. That's the only thing that's going to, make the difference. And people can't afford to do that right now. They have to stick their kid in the public school because it's free. And many of them, they go for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and aftercare, and our tax dollars pay for that too. And if the parents work, they can't pull their kid out.
Right.
But back to what we're saying, you're going to raise a generation of kids who can't critically think.
Can't do anything.
Let alone the whole furry thing. And I was thinking of this before when we were talking about studies. I had another article, but didn't come across that a prominent doctor that did the research on the puberty blockers to help kids who are trans. Apparently, the data shows that it does not help them. And they refused to publish it because they didn't want people to know. Right.
Well, again, I would just think that that's common sense. Once you're so when we went to the doctor, we were talking about testosterone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be putting extra hormones into someone's body unless they absolutely need it. Think about, this is where I always struggle with people when it comes to the medical aspect of the transitioning and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Think about this, right? If you are someone who has normal testosterone as a male and you put more testosterone in, you're screwing yourself. Can you imagine if you put something that's not even made for females into them at high dosages? What makes anyone think that that's a good idea? That's safe.
That's what they were saying, that these kids are so desperate that they're suicidal, that they desperately need this, and it's going to help them. Everybody, including parents, bought into it. Yeah, I don't want my kid to be dead. Yes, do it.
Which is insane.
Come to find out, you know what? The studies show it doesn't help them.
Well, I was just talking about this with people at the gym, but I think it's again, maybe this statistic has changed, but I'm pretty sure this is true. I'm going to say back in 2020, I saw this, so maybe it's changed. 54% of people that transition end up committing suicide. Now, imagine if you said a group of people, let's say Asian males, 54% of them were committing suicide. The first thing you would do is you would say, why is this happening? You wouldn't just let it go. You would say, why is this happening? How do we stop it? But for some reason, when we hear that, we go, okay, let's get them the help. And then the help is, let's start the transitioning process. Like, there's no therapy. There's no debate as to whether or not is this a good idea. But I was also talking to them as someone who has somewhat of a psych background. Who are you going to put into place that can navigate that for them? Someone who is in their body, but the mind is different, or however you want to put it. But how do you get these people the help they need before they start? Again, I have no problem with transitioning in the sense of, if you really, really believe that you're something, go for it. But like, I feel like we kind of jump from, I don't feel comfortable in my body, and then right to, hey, let's just start throwing in hormones and changing our genetic makeup. Whereas there needs to be something in the middle. And I don't think as a society we have it yet, which is the ability to kind of be like, are you sure this is the road you want to take? Like, there's no stopping them once that's through. And excuse me, to your point, like, these are people that, damn it, I had the thought and then I just lost it as I was taking a sip. But
well,
yeah.
Gender dysphoria is a legitimate mental health disorder. It usually affects young males more than females traditionally, and it was a very small percentage of the population. Having said that, it was treated long term. They didn't automatically go right to cutting somebody up. And it took years and years of therapy. It took time and whatnot.
Right.
Okay? In answer to your question, it's money. Money.
Money.
People are making a lot of money cutting these people up. And somebody decided with COVID, let's start cutting up the children because it'll be good for them.
Right.
Okay? And you had a lot of depressed young individuals, desperate, because they've been immersed in social media from the time that they're born, which has not been good for people's psyche in varying degrees.
Yeah.
Then you put them through the ringer with COVID. Then you put them through the stress of school through COVID. Okay? Then you come out of the situation and now you have even more depressed and lost people. Then you've got vaccines and whatnot and the pharmaceutical people, so much in your life that mommy can't go to work anymore unless she gets a vaccine. I can't go to school unless I get a vaccine. And that was an opportunity for the pharmaceutical industry to get in there and say, hey, we're going to solve all the problems of all these kids. They're obviously gender confused.
Right.
And if you think back last few years, it came on like a banshee. Then you start passing laws saying the school's going to decide if the kid is gender confused, not the parents. We're going to take the kids away from it, blah, 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 blah. Okay. There's money because once you start cutting these children up, they're on pharmaceuticals for the rest of their lives. When they look at statistics and say, well, you know, this is better for the child. Okay, show me the statistics about the 34-year-olds. Well, we don't have that yet because we don't have those individuals to study. Yeah, because it's never been done before. So to say, oh, it's perfectly fine, perfectly safe, do it, do it, do it, just like they did with vaccines and other stuff. And now you put pressure on parents to say, if you don't do this, your child's going to kill himself.
Yeah, which is
well, naturally,
scary.
parents going to, you know, all right, whatever. Then you force them to do it, which places like California, they are forcing parents to accept it. And you're having school psychologists who, not for anything, but school psychologists tend to be those people who aren't smart enough to go into private practice.
No, there's definitely something said to that. There's definitely, I know some teachers who I graduated with who I'm like, how the hell, you couldn't teach anything. So it's kind of the same concept with in-house doctors, I guess you can call them, the nurse.
Right.
So, yeah.
So many of these individuals who wind up taking puberty blockers or start the process of transgendering. It's a fun thing to do right now. You're getting a lot of attention. You're like the heroes, okay? This is the complete opposite of the poor souls who legitimately were struggling with that specific issue, who were outcasts because they were so, but they were rare. It was a rare situation. Maybe there were more out there we didn't know about. Certainly not the explosion we have now. And my concern is and it should be the concern of the psychiatric community, is we have an entire generation of people we're treating with something that may not be their problem. They're probably just depressed for other reasons. And how do you think it's going to help them when 5 years from now, after they've gone through surgery? How about a 5-year-old who's now 15, who says, what did you do to me? Which many of them are doing now, but they're not allowed to speak out on social media. They're not getting the attention. And they're raising the alarm and saying, this has to stop. You can't do this to young children, right? And if you do it to a young child, that child better have been in therapy for years and years and years before you take a knife to them, which was always the standard procedure. You never changed a 5-year-old. It's absurd. And that's another one of these. We're going to look back on this in 10, 15 years, and people are going to say, were they crazy? Were these people crazy doing this?
Yeah. I think it's going to be longer than 10 to 15 years, but I see what you're trying to say. I think, yeah, there's so many things. It's one of those things where even when I was in college, there was so many, and again, I had some world-renowned clinical psychologists and doctors and whatnot when I was there as teachers. And even they were like, hey, we have no real idea how to navigate this. And I had a closed doors conversation with one of the teachers who was very well known in the psychology world. And he said, we get paid to not talk about this. And I went, I mean, I get it, but there's lives kind of at stake here in the sense of 54% are dying. And at the time I didn't know that statistic, but looking back on it, I'm like, well, what would you do differently? And there's no answer. We just have to kind of figure out some way. But for me, when it comes to this topic, I do feel like we start with the whole, I do not feel comfortable in my body. And then it goes right to the next step of let's start hormone therapy. And then next step is surgeries. But there's clearly a massive gap there before you do that. Like there's something in the middle there that we are, for some reason, when it comes to any other mental health issue, you go to therapy because there's therapists for that. And it's tough when there isn't one maybe for transitioning. But normally you would have levels of therapy and doctor's visits before you go right to hormones and
right, but
surgeries.
The pharmaceutical industry doesn't make money that way.
Mom, don't you dare bring them up.
Well, I'm just saying,
do it,
the
mother.
sooner you get these kids on pills and meds, and this is not just for transgender. Pharmaceutical industry learned this with the ADD and the autism and everything else. It's a freaking pharmacy in these public schools. The public school system in this country needs to be blown up and started from scratch, because I don't know what the hell's going on in these schools anymore. I don't even think teachers are aware of it. Definitely parents aren't, and God forbid those of us who are taking a stand saying this is not teaching anymore. I don't know what these institutions are turning into, because my tax dollars are funding really the demise of an entire generation, and I have a problem with that, paying for that. And to your point,
to that Blue Ninja.
Anybody who goes through something that serious, the last resort should be pharmaceutical. It should be talk therapy. It should be, and
there's
not
so many things.
Not saying anything in school psychologists. I have no problem with them. Bullying, bad day, I'm not pretty. You know, I didn't make the team. I'm struggling with SAT stress. That's great for a school psychologist, okay? When you start elevating it to ADHD, autism, things that require transphobia, things that require a professional who's seen it, who's experienced it, who's done the therapy research on it, not some 5th grade teacher who barely knows how to pay a mortgage every month. I don't need her telling my child, you know what? Don't tell mommy and daddy, but I think you really want to be a little girl, little boy. These are the last people I want helping my child, and they should be the first ones to say, I'm not qualified, but you should go see a psychiatrist, and the school should make the referral. Hopefully not some, and then the school should walk away, you know, other than to educate the kid, and let the parents take over with the help of a psychiatrist. But instead, we've warped it into, I'm having some crazy who doesn't even know my child, who thinks they know better. A school psychologist.
Yeah,
that's
not something that. Yeah, that is incompetence on the teacher's part. Like, I can't blame the kid for feeling this way when a teacher's trying to push them one way. That's not a teacher's job. And it should never be their job. So that's why, to your point, it's very gross to see or hear stories about when a teacher goes, "Oh, you look like a boy, but I can tell you're a girl, so you should talk to your parents." Like stuff like that. Yeah, I don't. That's a wild.
And right after COVID, you had so many of these preschool teachers and kindergarten teachers who would boast about how they would do it every day. Oh, I want them to think like that. I want little boys to be little girls. These are not normal individuals themselves.
Right.
They need help. They should not be teaching. That is not a normal response for any child. You should be indifferent about that stuff. You don't bring that into the classroom. And that's not the way teaching is seen today. They want you to be the molder of your children. And, to me, that's an ideology just like Christianity and Islam and everything else. If that's not allowed in public schools, their ideology should not be allowed in public schools either.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for that. Let the parents discuss that. Let them do somebody who's a professional. That's not the responsibility of the school district. But they want to own your children because when they own the kids, they decide how the kids think. Right?
Yeah, no question about that. I mean, I completely agree. Yeah.
But you'll see the backlash. Get ready for it, you guys. I'll probably be dead. But all these young people with their furries and everything else, it's sad. They're losing their childhood.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It might be funny and cute. Maybe they're getting a lot of negative attention over it or attention that's not good for them.
Right.
But they're going to be 25, 26. What do you think? They're going to be happy adjusted adults when they find out I wasted my high school years pissing in a litter box?
Well, I always hate the saying negative publicity is good publicity because it's such a bad mindset to have when it comes to like even if you are good with negative comments on like YouTube videos and stuff, they still get to you. So all because it's publicity doesn't mean or negative or whatever.
Attention.
Doesn't there becomes a point where it becomes just attention, and that is going to weigh on you at some point. No question about it. Because especially if you're doing it for all the wrong reasons.
And it's going to turn because right now, God forbid you say something against the furry. If you say something against the furry, you're the kid who's going to be brought into the office for bullying, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to either blow sunshine up their ass or leave them alone and accept them for who they are. Okay. But meanwhile, is that really an organic lifestyle for the furry kid? Yeah. Who's then thinking that I'm great, I'm wonderful, everything's fine, what I'm doing is perfect.
I think it's more so the fact of people wanting to be different, right? And that's their form of attention. Because of all the outlets they could have had, they needed to go to the one that is the most, this is going to sound weird, but most easy, I guess. And what I mean by easy is you could have became the best pianist in your class. You could have been the best guitarist, best soccer player, but instead you did the easy road, which is I'm going to pretend to be something that I'm not. Now, I'm not against people doing what they want, but eventually you're going to end up convincing yourself of something that is not true. And that's where, to your point, that's when childhood falls apart. That's when traumas start. And you're doing things that I think a lot of adults nowadays go, oh, that's just a phase, or this is just a phase and they'll get through it. But what happens when they don't? Because you just let them do their own thing, thinking that it was just a phase. And I think I'm seeing that more and more in the younger generation. Like one of the parents that I know at the Y is kind of like that with their child, in the sense of kind of lets the child do what they want. Like, oh, he's a child, so he can get away with breaking windows on, I don't know, egging a house, like that, for example. And it's like, yeah, you could do that, or you could nip it in the bud early on in life so that they understand why this is wrong, and then expect them to just kind of figure it out over time. That's just not how that works.
Yeah, this blanket, let a kid do whatever they want. As a parent, you have to find the happy medium. Kids need guide rails. They crave it. And there are different degrees of it, I agree, and that's when parents have to make that judgment call. And each kid in your house is different. Not every kid needs to be treated the same way. But you have to understand, a lot of parents are lazy, which is true, or they're very busy with what they're doing. They take the easy way. But we're also at a point where if you say something at school, they'll take your kid away from you.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic. Let me just pause real fast, Mom, because now more and more people are coming into the chats. So
Go ahead.
obviously we're doing the podcast. We've been doing it for an hour and a half. We're using a new streaming system. So I'm managing, I'm not even exaggerating. My mom can't even see it, but I'm managing
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows right now. So we are live on DLive, Kick, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, uh, and I think that's it. So it's a little tough for me to manage everything. So I'm going to try and get everything, like any questions and stuff we do in a little bit, all together. So I can't see all my chats at once, but we will take questions and do a Q&A like we did last time later. So again, I'm sorry if it looks like I'm like half paying attention or whatever, but in reality, I'm just managing so many things right now while trying to maintain, while trying to maintain a conversation. So again, I apologize.
As your mother, you look like you didn't have much sleep last night, so I could tell it's a struggle.
It's not even that. It's just like this is where I wish I had more monitors, but I don't need them. It's just
How many more could you have, Chris?
Yeah, I'm at 3 and that's all I need, but I have to figure out how to consolidate all these chats because TikTok chat is going to be like that won't go to my computer, so that one I have to have open. And then like the not restream, the chat that I have in our recording system is only, from what it looks like, it's only YouTube and Twitch, and then I have DLive up over here, which has Blue Ninja in it, and then I also have Kick over here. So it is a shit show, to say the least. But we'll get to questions later. I mean, unless Mom wants to keep going. I don't know how many more articles you have, but I'm fine with just taking questions.
I was just going off on the other topics that we brought up because, I have a hard time between my iPad, my MacBook, and keeping everything. I load things onto my iPad, and recently I figured out how to sync it. But then I go on my computer, and half my articles weren't there. But anyhow, I think we covered a lot of different topics, and I don't know what else you want to bring to the table. I mean, we're all over the place. We're doing transgender. We're doing the election.
Yeah, we just did so many things there. But after 3 weeks of no podcasting, we're kind of at that point. So we can just do questions for the rest of the night. You guys can ask us anything. But first off, Pancake's thoughts on the Lunchies brand absolutely flopping. Okay, do you know what Lunchies is, Mom?
No.
So do you remember Lunchables?
Yes.
So Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, and I believe KSI came out with their own.
Oh, I've seen those at Walmart.
And they're not doing very well because they're essentially just like bigger versions of what's already made with their brands in there. So it's essentially, there's a big debate right now of, is it a ripoff? Like, I think there's lawsuits being thrown around that they're dealing with. But it's like, so my thoughts on it is I don't really eat that stuff in general. So the claim is that it's healthier, but I think they've kind of debunked that. It's basically the same. The only thing healthier is like the drink inside, that Prime Energy stuff that has coconut milk in it. So it's like healthier. But I think that's really it.
All right. I learned up at your grandmother's.
I'm just gonna grab water. Go ahead.
Okay. So with my high cholesterol, supposedly, I switched over to almond milk thinking that that's supposed to be healthier for you. Not that I have a lot of milk, but with cereal in the morning, I was having the almond milk. So when I was home, I saw an article that says non-dairy milk is not as healthier. There's always something, right? Because apparently they use a lot of emulsifiers to kind of thicken the almond juice that they use to create the milk to make it look more milkish. And those emulsifiers have bad materials in them, like cancer causing and all sorts of problem materials. So now I'm back to milk, good old fashioned cow milk. So everything, comes full circle.
So I only use almond milk because I use it for my milkshakes, or like my smoothies and stuff. But I don't drink enough milk to like I can't justify getting a gallon of milk for the week for me to maybe make one smoothie every 2 weeks. So I get the almond milk because it just lasts like a month before it expires, which I don't know if that's exactly a good thing. Like that's kind of a sign that maybe I shouldn't be doing that.
Well, here, all of them, the coconut milk, the almond milk, all these substitute milks are supposed to be so great for your cholesterol. It turns out, sure, my cholesterol will be great, but it'll be dead from cancer because it has these emulsifiers in it. So, you can't win. You just can't win. But anyhow, you talked about that. The Lunchables, I'm going to say this. I had a friend who had a daycare, place, and she was forced to take low-income individuals at in order to keep her place going. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They would come with these little kids, and again, low-income individuals. So I guess they were getting subsidies or WIC cards or whatever, from the government. The kids would come with Lunchables and crap food like that, right? Every day. Lunchables are fine once in a while. Like that was a treat for you guys for fun. But these kids are having it every day. And when the teacher, the owner of the preschool, looked up the cost of them, she goes, it's cheaper to get a loaf of bread, peanut butter and jelly, and make
just
the kid a
make it
sandwich
yourself.
every day.
Yeah.
But people are too lazy, or they don't have the time. So it's just easy to get the Lunchables. Sure, my tax dollars are paying for it. But meanwhile, Michelle Obama was making a stink about what's going on in the schools with the food.
The one thing, hold on, I will give Michelle Obama credit, though. This is one thing that the good thing that came out of the Obama administration was something his wife did, which is the fact that they have to disclose what's on the back of the products now, like the calories, what percentage. Like that's a great thing for people to know and understand. But one of the questions was, please ask Mama Cakes if these sort of Lunchable type meals were ever present during her time raising the Pancake Brothers we have come to love.
I don't think Mike ever had them. I can't remember.
I definitely had them, but I don't think that they were that great. It's kind of like if you had them, you were the cool kid, but they weren't good. I can
remember a short period of time. It was like a Friday treat. You get a Lunchable for Friday, except the special to have. But they weren't very filling. It's not like a sandwich. They were like crackers and a few pieces of salami.
I get more excited for the charcuterie board on the airplane than I do for a freaking Lunchable nowadays. But yeah,
I was the child's version of the charcuterie board. The Lunchables.
Yeah, there was never one. I mean, the one that I remember was the pizza one. Looking back on it, it was literally just a giant Ritz cracker with like a packet of tomato paste, whatever that was, and then some like somewhat shredded cheese.
Yeah.
And we paid for that. You look at it and you're like, why'd I eat this? So
yeah, as I recall, it wasn't enough. Like it wasn't. You guys were still hungry. I had to make a sandwich anyhow. I'm like, well, why am I throwing this garbage in? I'll just give you a stack of crackers and some cheese. And that wasn't. Oh, I want that. It's just the novelty of the Lunchable because the other kids had it and had
exactly.
Dessert. And I think there was a dessert in it too. I'm not even sure. A pudding or something from time to time.
Yeah, maybe you're right. It's been so long I don't even remember what they look like. But I was never into the Lunchables stuff. So
yeah, not enough that you want every day.
Yeah. Any other questions? I mean, I'm sure we'll have tons of questions, but we'll see how many we can get through.
About the Lunchables.
Yeah. Well, just in general, other stuff. But yeah, that's what I meant. Like, I'm just not. I was never that into them. I had one, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so cool" because everyone else has one. But then you taste it, and you go, "How much are these?"
Yeah.
Even back then, I was like, "This seems like a waste."
Yeah.
I have to look real fast. Let me see the pizza Lunchables. I gotta remember what was in there.
They make all different kinds now, like seasonal, holiday ones. It's good marketing, but as I said, I think it's something fun to do once in a while. I wouldn't give it to a kid every day.
There's just not enough in there.
That's what I mean. You guys were always hungry afterwards. I'm like, why am I doing this? It was cheaper too. I mean, that's the other thing. It's expensive. Those things are not cheap to do every day.
Yeah, so they're maybe the price has gone down since then, but it says that one Lunchable is about $4.
That's a lot, And in public schools, these kids are getting free meals anyhow if you meet the certain requirements. So
my mom used to just give us the unboiled hot dogs and throw them in.
Come on.
Here's your
remember your brother Ken, it was always peanut butter. All he ate was peanut butter. Every day I was making a goddamn peanut butter sandwich. You want no jelly, just peanut butter. I'm like, Kenny, could you eat something else? Oh, I just want my peanut butter, Mom. I just want my peanut butter.
Yeah.
That or turkey sandwich.
I just remember the butter and cheese that Kenny used to eat. Remember those?
Ew.
The butter and cheese. With this catching headlines, what are your honest thoughts on the Menendez brothers, and do they deserve a retrial? Now, have you been paying attention? Do you know who the Menendez brothers are?
Oh, I do. I remember the original case, and it's an interesting case because it looked like cold-blooded murder, money involved, inheritance, blah blah blah. Then we get the whole story about the father molesting them.
Oh my God, the horror stories that they have talked about. I mean, I'm on the side of the kids now. Like the at that age, if they did it at this age, it'd be like, okay, well that doesn't make clearly there was another motive. But when you do it at, I forget what age they were when they actually killed
I
their
want to say
parents.
teenagers.
Yeah, it makes you go, okay, there's more to the story. Now, do I believe that they're 100% being honest about everything? Probably not. But also, clearly, they had some really, really shitty parents who I don't even know how to put. Like, some of the things that I've heard about that case and the stuff that I've seen, I mean, yeah, those people, this is going to sound terrible, but there's people out there that should not live. And it sounds like those parents were definitely case in point of that.
I know what the Menendez boys had said. I don't know if it's been corroborated. So
Yeah.
that's the side of why I can't have an opinion either way. I haven't read enough about. I remember when the story came out, I remember that that was the defense that they were using, that they were molested, and I forget their lawyer. She had the frizzy blonde hair. I remember her saying, when you hear all the facts, you'll have a different opinion. But I don't recall if it was a he said, she said. Because it's very convenient for them to say that when they're in trial for the murder of their parents.
Right.
But I do recall some of it made sense in terms of their reaction and how it all went down. But it's you can make very outlandish allegations, especially you could plan that ahead of time with your brother if you intend to kill your parents for money. You could come up with a whole story. I don't know the
At that
corroboration.
age, I don't. At that age, there would be so many more holes in the story, which is why I believe it. Their story has stayed the same since they were 16 or whatever it is, which is very rare to have. When you talk about the human mind and how malleable it is, you can't keep a story that true for X amount of years. You just can't. So
Yeah.
that's why I do believe them. I think the parents were absolutely horrible and they had nowhere else to go except for to get rid of their parents. So I think that there is a retrial. Do I think that they should just be innocent? That's not, I don't think that that's necessarily true. But I do believe that their sentence should be significantly lower because in the end they were just kind of defending themselves and just
Right.
didn't want uh, they didn't want to keep living the life that they were living at the time. And I think this was their only decision.
As I said, I can't comment because I don't remember um, all the details.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember the twist in the case. And at that point, I forget when it was. I was busy doing other stuff, but I didn't follow it all the way through. And I remember hearing some of the evidence, but I just heard it from the boys. I don't remember hearing anybody corroborating it. I don't, I'm seeing now headlines about family coming out and supporting them. I mean, they've been in jail for, is it 34 years now? They've been in jail for this. Um, I think, is it that long? 34 years
Maybe.
before you were born? Maybe,
That
yeah.
could be true.
Um, there are people who do worse who get out sooner. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
justifies it, but if there if there was enough evidence and they deserve a retrial, go ahead. Let's hear the evidence.
Right.
Get them out, and that would be a shame. I'm laughing because they're not laughing, but the Central Park people, they're filing the Central Park Five. Remember that story about the jogger? Okay,
Oh,
this
yeah,
is
yeah,
way.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
with the guy that's
So
now on Congress or whatever, one's a politician or something.
yes, he's now in the state, New
Yeah.
York State Assembly, and got a ton of money from the city of New York, defamation money, right? Movie was done by some lauded producer who exonerated these five, right? They're now suing Trump for defamation because of comments that he made.
Yep.
And the joke of it is, when people hear the evidence about the Central Park Five and just how bad it was, how guilty they all said they
We were.
were. Okay? That I'm not laughing, but there's an individual writer, she's been following this and she's been on it from the beginning. and she knows what a crime it has been that these people were exonerated and given money. They didn't deserve it. They pretty much admitted to doing it. That sometimes that's just how stupid people get, how greedy they get. So these Central Park Five, you really want to litigate this again? You want this stuff to come out because now it's not going to be the pat on the back like the movie. Now we're going to go back and listen to your tapes and the comments you made to the police in the car about a Walkman that they didn't even know about. So you had to have been there at that rape. Right. The fact that your girlfriend
you gotta be careful with the words that we're saying on live. Remember, this is live.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But comments about the things that they did, that the girlfriend said, oh, he didn't do that. He just held her down, right? Things that are damning evidence that they don't talk about in the movie. They don't talk about, oh, they were just kids. They didn't know any better. So similar situation where when you relitigate something many, many years later and you pull out the evidence, like with the Menendez boys, I remember it being discussed in the court. I remember it came up. But for some reason, I don't know why it wasn't enough to sway the jury at the time.
Right. Troops from North Korea have been spotted training with Russian forces and are currently mobilizing to the western region where Ukraine has been maintaining a strong foot in. Is this something we should be concerned with, or could this be another one of Putin's fronts to keep his facade of Russian army superiority? I think what this is, I haven't seen this article, but let's say it is true for the sake of the debate here. I don't think it's that. I think he's just putting there. We have a massive election coming up, and that is really going to determine the future of this war. And I think Putin is getting ready for the worst, which is, let's say Trump loses and Ukraine's going to keep getting more money, whereas Zelensky is now kind of at the point where he's kind of given up on the Democrats and has gone to Trump directly. So I think Putin is just getting ready for the worst case scenario, which is Kamala wins and this war is going to continue. So I might as well bolster my forces now rather than get blindsided by whatever Ukraine's doing. That's my mindset. That's what I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of, to your point, it's a moot point until after November 5th. Yeah. I think you'll see a lot of things change come November 6th. I don't think this is sustainable for either side, and I don't think the American people are going to put up with constantly dumping more money and weapons into a never-ending war in another part of the world after we've had hurricanes, after we've had damage to our own cities, and as we've said for months now, wait till the next talk as soon as this ends. Now we're going to have to rebuild Ukraine. Oh, we're responsible. We should rebuild Ukraine. Our cities are falling apart. And we're going to send even more money over to Ukraine. I think that there will be some sort of arrangement, truce, treaty that comes out of it.
Yeah.
What's always been an issue is the whole NATO. Joining NATO, letting Ukraine be part of NATO.
I still think that NATO is the most useless garbage thing in the world. They are useless.
Well, there's something to be said for we don't back out of NATO, but in the past administration, he was very adamant about them paying their own way. And that's part of the reason why they didn't like him. Because finally somebody stood up and said, why is America paying for the defense of everybody around the world?
Exactly.
Why? We send the bodies, we send our sons, we send the money, we send the weapons. Now, you can make the case, well, a lot of times we cause these problems, so we should send them. Our government caused them, like in Ukraine. Our American hands are dirty with what went over there. But that's not our fault. These are the criminals that our government sent over to negotiate these things, and they cause more problems. Having said that, I think that's part of the reason why people are voting. One of the candidates is saying, I will end that war. Yeah. I will talk to Putin. I will talk to Zelensky. He's already talked to both of them already. And we will come to a conclusion, and we will end that war.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what I want to hear.
Former President Trump has been very vocal in the news that if he was able to win this election, he would fire the main probe investigator, Jack Smith, who brought the main cases up against Trump. Do you believe that this is an overstep of power or a certain need to finally lay these allegations to rest? Ooh, that is an interesting question. I guess I think when it comes to things that all politicians say, including Trump, I think there's a lot of things that people will say, it's one of those things where, let's say you got into office tomorrow, or let's just say he wins the election or whatever. There's a lot of checks and balances that have to go through before you just fire someone. So I don't think that someone like Jack Smith is going to be fired instantaneously. I'm sure it'll be in the works, but I don't think that is it an overstep of power? I'm going to say no, because you're just kind of firing an employee. The president has the ability to do that. But yeah, I don't know. If the guy's that, oh man, I don't even know how to really put this, but like, well, you go, Mom, and I'll try and feed off what you say.
Jack Smith is a garbage prosecutor. He's done a crappy job. They've given him nothing to work with, and he's tried to make a case out of nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay? The whole use of our DOJ to go after a president based on nothing. Okay? And for those who are asking the question, if you think that, well, Trump's corrupt, whatever, why has not one of them gotten him on anything other than that nut job Ejon Carroll in New York City with a totally New York City jury, et cetera, et cetera. So having said that, and that's not criminal. That's civil case. It's money. Having said that, this Jack Smith, he's not even supposed to be in the role he's in.
Right.
He was not appointed the proper way. He is not supposed to be in this position in the first place. Now, he's under the DOJ, and the DOJ is under the executive branch. Mm-hmm. So I'm of the old school in that I've put up with the Democratic weaponization of our government, and some Republicans in the past too, who helped it, that I'm fed up, and I don't want the next president to be tiptoeing around with this. It's time we clean house. If you could get rid of the FBI altogether today, I would say get rid of it and start from scratch. It's beyond corrupt.
But is it that easy to do? Like, what I'm trying to say is, let's say
every administration that comes in before Trump hands out pink slips the first day.
Okay.
All of a sudden, Trump comes in, and God forbid he does that, and don't you dare. Obama did it. George Bush did it. Ronald Reagan did it. Gerald Ford. They all do it because it's an ideology. You start at the top, you get these people out. And Trump, we have learned from the Trump administration just how corrupt these organizations, how anti-American and constitutional they have become. They need to be straightened out. And Jack Smith is a perfect example of using the Department of Justice to slap together some sort of, I don't remember what his was. Was it the classified information files at Mar-a-Lago that's still dragging on months and months later? And meanwhile, the current president had them in his garage. Yeah. Okay? And things thrown around in offices at universities. So please spare me. These clowns have to go. They have to go. I'm done.
I'll agree. I'll join Mom on that one. I'll take your opinion.
I'm sick, and it's not even ideology anymore. I'm sick of my tax dollars being wasted on this. Go after the people in government who are taking money from our enemies.
Yeah.
There's evidence right there. Go after them.
What are your thoughts on the pampering of video game voice chat? Do you believe that the game devs are getting soft, or have we allowed trash talk on video games to become acceptable behavior? I'm all for trash talking. There's nothing better than taking someone out and just yelling at them. This is my problem with the voice chat stuff, and this just goes to show you that the ratings on video games don't mean anything anymore. So, right, you used to have rated E, rated T, rated M. The reason that you have a rated M, which is Call of Duty, which is what everyone's kind of referring to here. We have the new one that comes out tomorrow, actually. So I won't be talking to you for a couple weeks, Mom. Okay.
Nice talking to you, Chris.
When it comes to, again, it's Call of Duty going, oh, we understand that 12-year-olds are buying our rated M games. So let's make sure that it's a safe place for the 12-year-olds. It's like, no. You have more adults playing the game. Well, maybe that's not true, but you have... don't get into the kitchen if you can't take the heat, some
Yeah.
of the reasons that we have such tough skin, my generation, well, I shouldn't say my generation, but the gamers, was because we were in old school Modern Warfare 2 lobbies where you were a white kid getting called the N-word all day. So
Yeah.
that's just how it was. And those are the things that shaped us. That's where we were. But in all seriousness, yeah, you have kids now playing games like Grand Theft Auto at the age of 9. Right, and then you're gonna complain, oh, the adult's too mean to me. There's too many swear words. Like, what are we doing? So that's why I think I again, if even in a team-based game, I think it's stupid that you're banning people for things that they say or do. But again, if you're abusing chat, like if you're just yelling in people's ears all day, then yeah, that's obviously. But I think yeah, I think it's just gotten way too soft in a lot of aspects. So
Everything in life has gotten too soft. This whole business of hate speech and whatnot. Oh, give me a break, okay? I'm so done with it. It's words, people. I'm so done. Grow a set. Get over it. It's not the gaming company's responsibility. If mom and dad buy an M-rated game or they allow their kids to play M-rated games and they're not 18 or whatever the cutoff is, right?
yeah,
That's not the gaming company's responsibility. That's mom and dad's. Mom and dad need to grow a set and tell their kids, shut it off.
yeah, no.
Yes, they will be hated. I was hated many times from my kids, but that's what you do. Or if you don't care, you live with the consequences of a little deviant kid playing these games before they're socially or emotionally able to do so.
Yeah. Hey, Mom, did you just change your mic or something? Like the
No,
setting? Oh, okay. I guess you were just too close and it was.
it was too close.
I think you were
But
behind the microphone there and that's why it sounded weird.
oh,
But so this
nobody
is.
heard my rant.
No. They heard it. It was just very muffled because we were like, wait, what's going on?
I
But
listen. I miss the good old days when you had to sneak into an R-rated movie.
yeah.
That's what kids used to do, Mike. And you were nervous and you sweat and you had to sneak into an R-rated movie because you weren't 18 and you didn't have your parents. And then all of a sudden they came up with PG-13, and then it was R but with an adult. We bend over backwards. It is what it is. If it's an R-rated movie or an R-rated game, be prepared. There's gonna be swearing, and if you don't want it, you don't like it, get off of it.
Yeah. This is a good question. I totally forgot about this. This happened while we were away. Your thoughts on the Power World lawsuit. Now, do you remember what Power World was, Mom? We actually talked about this. This was a game that did very, very well for a few weeks, and it was kind of like a Pokemon ripoff. And the question
Yeah.
was, is Nintendo going to sue them at some point? And like 2 weeks ago, they finally sued them. So it seems Nintendo waited for the player count of Power World to dip and strike to dip. Oh, to dip to strike. Do you believe that Nintendo has a solid case? How does one patent a game concept? This is a very good question. I like this question. The problem with Nintendo, and it's very strange how this works because it's not a Japanese company that they're trying to sue. And it's kind of like Disney's kind of the same way. If you have like a likeness of Mickey Mouse, your ass is getting sued. But if you were to just it's very similar to, okay, man, how do I put this? There's other games that I've played that are very similar to Pokemon, but don't have the player counts for Nintendo to really care. Power World was the first game that came to. So just so you know, Mom, all Nintendo games, there's no Pokemon games on PC that you can get.
Okay.
Like there's no. So there's these guys go, okay, let's just make a game like Pokemon for PC, which ended up being Power World, and now they're suing. That's basically the concept here.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is like, to your point, Battlefield and Call of Duty are very similar. They both have guns. They both shoot. They have similar game modes, but there's no lawsuit. And what Nintendo's trying to do is they're trying to monopolize the Pokemon aspect of I guess that genre, if you want to call it that. But they have other games too, like The Legend of Zelda. There's been so many different copies of games like Legend of Zelda. Why have they not sued for that? So they must have some kind of patent or case for this. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother. But I don't think it'll work because there's nothing that kind of, except for the ability to capture monsters in a Pokeball, there's really not much similarities in game style. So that's why I don't think it's gonna matter. for the
I
most
have
part.
no opinion about it
Yeah.
either way.
I mean, the monetization aspect of Pal World, or like, I'm sorry, the monopolization of Pal World, I guess. Um, it must be a threat to Nintendo somehow. It must be for them to go this far. But no, that's a good question. Any other questions? We got some good ones. I am very glad that we were able to stream to so many different platforms pretty easily on this. I mean, it sucks having 7 different things to
Yeah,
look
you
at
went
here, but
crazy.
I feel like a schizophrenic. I'm like, which one, which chat to look at? It's very strange. I'm hoping that I can just add restream to. See, I was hoping I can just get rid of restream, but um, I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm just going to add it to the overall. Um, it's almost like I'm going to restream within restream because that way I can get the chat up and all that stuff too. So I'm hoping we can do it that way. So yeah, we'll give everyone a few to ask any questions they have.
Tim Walz tells Duke University students they're, quote, on a list and Trump will round them up using the military.
That's wild. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. These are our candidates.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they did a massive prayer.
Pathetic.
Oh man. Well, we didn't get to talk about the right, the one Catholic or Christian at Kamala's thing. You're at the wrong rally. She basically just lost all the Christian votes like in less than 24 hours. Your thoughts?
No, even worse, she refuses to allow religious exemptions for abortion.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Why? What difference does it make to the federal government if you don't want to pay for it? But anyhow.
Your thoughts on the Boeing machines mechanist? Did he spell? Did you spell that right? Mechanist? Mechanic. I think he said mechanist, but he meant to say mechanic strike. They rejected a 35% raise, a $7,000 bonus, and an increase of 401k contribution. Boeing has estimated a quarter loss of $6 billion due to these strikes. So Dad and I were actually talking about this. Boeing hasn't had a profitable year since 2018. Like they're always losing money. And what's funny is can you name another airplane company? Like I couldn't name another airplane company. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there's overseas ones, but I don't know what exactly the strike is over, but I'm going to assume it's the fact that Boeing's had so many issues and with their planes and the structural integrity of their planes, and it seems like they're cutting corners. And I guess the company kind of put it on the employees, like this is their fault, not us, and that's why they went on strike. On top of pays and all that, but it goes to show you, it goes to show you that there's more to this than money, which I guess is kind of a good thing because it goes to show like these people actually care more about these workers, I should say, care more about making good planes than the actual finances behind it. They're just tired of the working conditions. So, Boeing obviously is struggling hardcore, and I'm sure people will still buy their planes. Like I'm sure airline companies will still purchase, or however it works, the planes that they make. So I think it's just a matter of finding a deal. I think it's going to take a certain amount of money for them to say, okay, we'll come back and deal with it. But clearly some conditions have to be changed.
Sneezing? Oh.
No. Yawning.
Yeah, I was looking up builders. Commercial and private. Frankly, usually it's always about money, Chris, unfortunately. And
just like with the Hollywood strikes, the writer strike.
Yeah, if Boeing doesn't get their act together, you're right. There's to some extent they're the only game in town, and they know that. But you can always find some other company that's going to come along, maybe not as quickly.
Right.
And the strikers are trying to take advantage of that. I don't know the executive level salaries to say, are they justified in asking for more? But when your company is failing, and many of the planes are having some serious issues, it's really kind of ballsy to say we want more money and more benefits and more everything else. you would think as a company they would work together to say, hey, we got to fix this problem to generate and get the confidence of the people back, because, you know, if more and more of these issues happen, fewer people are going to fly.
Yeah.
Are you okay? You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I was trying to check on TikTok in the mobile app, like, are we live? And for some reason, I accidentally just posted something to the story on TikTok, and I'm like,
well,
like, how do I delete this? Because it's not. God, I'm just like, what are we doing? Thank God it wasn't like a important one, but I don't. God, TikTok is making me more and more less wanting to use it as the days go by. I just wanted to see if we were live on the mobile app, and I don't even know how to check. Like, there's no physical way of checking it.
World's top 10 aircraft manufacturers.
Yeah.
So Boeing's number 1. What's number 2? Airbus.
The Airbus. Oh, there we go.
Embraer. Bombardier. Forgot about that.
Bombardier. Okay, that's a good one.
Comac.
I've never even heard of that one.
Mitsubishi Aircraft Corp.
Huh.
UAC. Avistar SP.
It's just a matter of time.
Doesn't Musk make any?
I was just going to say, it's about time Tesla makes one.
Gips Aero is number 9, and number 10 is... No, just 9. Yeah, they have number 1 is Airbus Corporate Jets, but those are corporate. Boeing Business Jet. Yeah. So there are other companies out there, and they'd be foolish to not try and scramble for some more of that market share, given the poor quality they're getting out of Boeing these days.
Yeah, really. That's why I was wondering, like...
But I think it's only certain Boeing planes. I don't think they're having it across the board. I think there's just certain jets.
There's so many different types that I'm sure. But that's why we only fly private, so.
That's right. That's why we only fly private, or we take the minivan to take Grandma to Florida, to North Carolina.
All right. Any other questions? Let me check all my chats.
Yeah. Just 1 or 2 more, because I got to start packing up for my...
Oh, that's right. I forgot to go up tomorrow.
Oy.
These, this is an ADHD's worst nightmare.
How is it down there? Is it getting cooler?
It's probably like 65, the lowest,
nice.
so it's not terrible. Maybe later at night it gets down to lower 60s, maybe upper 50s, but the weather's good. Can't complain.
We're dropping down too during the day. It's not in the 80s like yesterday. It's more in the 70s. I think by end of the week. Well, I'm going up to the tundra, so it's like 24 at night.
All right. Your thoughts on Diddy's attorney's move to expose publicly all the accusers in the case. Well, I do believe it is a right to fair trial to publicly expose these people may interfere with their testimony. Well, I do believe it is a right to a fair trial to publicly expose these people may interfere with their testimony. Man, that's a toughie. I think Diddy's kind of in the predicament of, how do I put this? He knows he's going to do time. Everyone knows he's going to do time. And he probably has a deal going with the FBI or CIA, whoever it is, that is, if you give us names, we will lower your sentence. And that's why he is probably 100% into into going public with all this stuff. But I think this is going to be kind of like an Epstein story in the sense of you're going to have a list that's never going to come out. It's never going to come to light. But I will say it, and we talked about this earlier in the podcast, it is very funny how all these people that were associated with the diddler are now promoting a certain presidential candidate when they said we were not going to promote a presidential candidate. So it looks like you're starting to see the people who are trying to defend themselves, I guess, or trying to do what they can to get out of this, knowing that they're going to get exposed. So that's the way I kind of see it, in the sense of Diddy clearly has something here to kind of get people, like to really hit those celebrity. Like he has a list. It's going to come out eventually, and the people who are getting leveled are doing whatever they can to save face. So
here's the thing: if you were a victim, first of all, oftentimes you read these stories, and it's what's a 14-year-old doing at these parties, right?
exactly.
Or a 15-year-old, other than a celebrity who, they get pushed to go to these things for recognition. But one story I read was horrible about a 14-year-old. Okay, so she snuck into a show and got taken to this party.
The way
So
it,
she did something that
yes.
she was supposed to do. But let me get my point. It's not like they were kidnapped off the street in a van and taken. Doesn't mean what happened to them is right. Absolutely not. But if I'm that 14-year-old and I'm now, say, 20, 22, I have a choice. I could either take a chunk of money and not say anything, or I could speak up about what happened to me at a party that I shouldn't have been at that age, right? And now I'm going to be exposed to a lot of high-end individuals. Yeah. I'm not going to get squat for it, right? Other than a lot of crap, a lot of publicity I don't want, and have to relive the experience that I went through. When you look at it, and it doesn't change the fact that I went through it. And the fact that this is even getting to this point, you would like to think that it's not going to happen again by these same individuals to young people and that they learn their lesson.
Right.
So you kind of wait, if I'm talking to that individual, say it's a family member, whatever, I could kind of say, I can understand, take the money.
Yeah.
Live a nice life. Be wealthy.
Yeah, let me just read the second part of this. So his attorney argues by remaining anonymous, it breaks Diddy's right to a fair trial. But to publicly expose those that are accusing Diddy, rightfully so, will put these people in danger. And that is true. So I don't know if you know the story, but allegedly he tried to murder a rapper or someone by like putting a car bomb or something. So it is possible because he just has,
right.
I guess, again, I don't want to call them gang members, but yeah, I mean, it's that double-edged sword. Again,
versus taking a chunk of money. So do I want to be murdered, or do I take a chunk of money and be quiet and nothing really changes other than Diddy's going to go to jail, which was the ultimate goal anyhow.
Yeah, and the question is who else?
They get to walk free.
But and then there's a lot of people that have clearly been there, which is like, I mean, we've seen Jay-Z, Beyonce, I mean, you name it, they've all been there. And the concept is kind of like what we have with the Epstein. It's like, oh, you were at these parties, but were you doing the things that is alleged? And then that's the whole, you can give me a list of people that have been to your house. I mean, Diddy had a club, like an actual club in his house that was open to the public. So when it comes to kind of covering your tracks, I guess, it's going to be very hard to prove that any of these people did anything that they weren't supposed to unless you have it on camera. That's all I'm saying.
Which apparently there are some cameras.
Until we see it, I'm sure they're there. Until we see it, we can't really,
But in answer to what the person was asking, we do have part of our judicial system and our Constitution. You have a right to know who your accuser is.
Yeah.
That's been the case, like even mafia cases and whatnot, which you want to be anonymous. Now, they'll make it anonymous outside of the courtroom, like you don't necessarily publish people's names, but a defendant has a right to know who their accuser is. And unless I think in the case of minors, you might be able to protect their identity. But these kids still have to go on the stand in front of their accusers, and they have to talk about what happened. And that's why so many times they don't do it, and the parents won't put the kids through that because it's more damaging than what's going to happen to that individual. And God forbid that person gets let out, they're going to retaliate against your kid or the minor.
Right.
So it's a risk, and the judicial system sort of tries to protect these witnesses as best they can, but that's part of the whole process where it takes a lot of courage to do that sometimes, because you will not be liked and you will be threatened.
I'll close the questions for you. GG's Great Live Podcast. Thank you, Henry. Again, I'm glad it worked out in the sense of, as I said, we're trying something very new here that I'm still getting used to. But we can take one more question if anyone has any. You can ask us anything. It doesn't have to be news related. We'll give it like 5 minutes, and if not, we can end it there. So.
Yeah, good questions. Very good questions.
Oh.
for our return live podcast.
Yeah. Again, it's been a long 3.5 weeks or 3 weeks total, whatever it was.
I don't know what to tell you going forward because next weekend, if all goes well, I'll have Gma here, and I don't know if she's in condition for me to do another podcast. We have to
I
see.
didn't even think about that. I know I can get Jen to. I'm doing someone else's podcast on. Is it Monday?
Monday.
So Monday,
30.
we'll do that one, and I'll post that, and then maybe she'll do ours on Saturday if you can't make yours. I would like to do one, the three of us, but if you can't make it, then that's.
Well,
so be it.
I don't know if I can do. I won't be able to do Monday because I'll be upstate.
Oh,
but
well,
I can do one down the road. Right. Your time we might be able to do.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say next Saturday. Right, next Saturday.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's the beginning of November. I'm not sure. Your I know some point your brother's coming home, and that could be somebody who could sit with grandma. But Michael, Penn State whiteout.
Oh, that's why I was like, why would he be coming home?
November 9th.
Is he already sick of Ken? Are they already biting each other?
You got to hear those two when I call them. Mom, he's not feeding me. Why does he have to feed you? You're an adult. Feed yourself. No, Mom, he has to stick to the
and it's Kenny saying
the protocol.
Yeah. And Kenny's the one saying
Mike saying it. And Kenny's in the background saying, no, he has to stick to the protocol. We have beef and broccoli every night. That's it. Tuesdays we have I'm like, oh my god.
Well, I told Uncle Jerry we might have to go to McDonald's. Have you heard of the new chicken Whopper? Don't tell Dad. He's not prepared.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently it's delicious.
Whopper.
Now, Blue Ninja, as much as I would love to answer this question, I think you already know the answer. Do you think that the Clinton family has numerous connections to getting journalists, politicians, and influencers killed off? Hey, you know.
Let me say this. I think their influence is waning.
Yeah, I agree. I think people are starting to realize that they're on their way out. The daughter doesn't do too much, so it's not like it's pushed on.
The daughter they're trying to promote for future public office.
Which is not going well.
She's desperate to get elected to anything. She wanted to be an ambassador to UK, anything at all. You know, God forbid these people just go take their multi-millions and live a life. No, that's not enough. They have
all
to have
I'm
power
saying is I don't know anyone that has over 150 friends that have committed suicide. Like, that's just not.
Is it really that many?
I think it's like 120 something associated with the Clintons.
It's not friends, it's acquaintances, but you know, they're not all friends. But yeah, some of them are a good portion of them are pretty shady. But I saw Bill Clinton, he's stumping for Kamala, and I think Kamala probably wants him to stop. He's doing more harm than good. He's out there saying
I laugh every time when I see the President Carter just cast his vote and he's just like,
oh my
I feel so bad for the guy. It's just a corpse essentially. Like that guy can't lift a finger, let alone vote.
That's your Democratic. That's what I'm saying. Look at the Democratic Party in totality. Think about it. Take the Republic. Take it out. Just look at that party by itself.
Yeah, it's not good. Oh yeah, mess is an understatement. But all right, well, I guess we can end it there. We just did 2 hours, so we might continue streaming for the next 2, just because I want to do some like test stuff, just so we can see how it goes, and do kind of like a short stream, and then we'll play some games or something. But yeah,
this is your mother talking. You look very tired.
Really?
You can't stay up too late. Yes.
Well, yeah, I'm just doing our usual stream, but yeah. Plus, I still have a run after this. I gotta hit the treadmill.
Okay, well, you better watch your time because it's very late.
God, I'm getting mommed here.
That's right.
Yeah. Trust
me, people, it costs me a lot of money when Christopher gets very tired.
Fair point. Oh yeah. We can end it there. So I'm glad that we're back. I'm glad we're a little more on a schedule again. I've posted a crap ton of videos the last couple days, including shorts. So as I said, we're back on track, which feels good.
By the way, it might be within the next couple weeks we can actually do one together in New Bern.
Yeah, I mean, I have all the equipment and stuff. Yeah, I think what I was going to do
down there. If all goes well, I'll be down there within the next 2 weeks, so we might be able to podcast.
I want to see if I can get another colored pen for the
tablecloth.
Tablecloth, thank you, because I realize like we do have a lot of guests, of course, like in the future, but I have people who donate a certain amount of money on the streams, not like a crazy amount. Like they deserve to be on that as well, I think. So maybe we'll do a viewer's signature as well. Just write the names on there.
Do you have to do black? Maybe you should do a white tablecloth.
Yeah, we could do that. Maybe we make a tablecloth one for viewers and make a tablecloth one for the guests.
Because everybody who signed the black one, you could just get them to resign. You know everybody from that.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And just start fresh with the white one. You do multicolors. Do black, do red.
Yeah, I'm always afraid with white because white kind of has like a glare to it a little bit with all the lighting that we have. But so it would have to be literally some kind of cloth.
Yellow or...
yeah. I don't know.
You can do
we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
I would like to do it that way. But
even the green behind you, you could do black on that and see it. Like that color green.
Yeah. I guess that's true. I actually have a white one, so that would work. But I think it's more of like a photo. I have to check. It's been a while since I looked at it.
You don't even have a tablecloth. Isn't that a curtain?
What?
The black one. Isn't that a curtain?
I don't know. You got it.
Yeah, I think it's a curtain. I don't think it's an extra one.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. So
might be worth bringing for another one.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we'll end the podcast there. This will also come out on Monday for those of you that missed it. But only things we have to promote. So I put out 2 Wukong videos because we're still finishing that off. I know it's way overdue, but I was gone the last 2 weeks and I just want to finish it out. We have a bunch of games to play. We did Dragon Ball Z yesterday, but we streamed that. I didn't turn that into a video, and then on Wednesday or Tuesday, and then posted a walkthrough for Skirt Ritual with Jason, and then probably Saturday I'm gonna get one more video out, and then we should be pretty good. So social media, promo codes, stream links, Discord down below. And I'm really just saying this for the podcast because we're going to continue. I'm just going to end it there. And then, we'll do it from there. So, Mom, you have a good one. I'm going to just set up for
this. Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Oof. So I'm sure you guys can hear me. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to end stream because that way it's like put together. And then we'll continue. So someone just joined in TikTok chat.